Welcome back to Green Disruptors, the podcast where we explore the technologies, strategies, and leaders driving the transition to a cleaner, more sustainable future. I'm your host, Megan KR. Today, I'm joined by Brad Pleima, President of Eco Engineers, a consulting, auditing, and advisory firm helping organizations navigate renewable energy markets, monetize emissions reductions, and transition toward decarbonization. From working with scrappy two-person innovation teams to Fortune 100 giants, Eco Engineers helps clients understand regulatory frameworks, carbon credit opportunities, lifecycle emissions, and how to turn sustainability into both impact and profit. In this episode, Brad and I dive into how companies of any size can participate in the energy transition, why market downturns can actually be a moment of strategic advantage, and how incremental progress beats all or nothing thinking when tackling climate challenges. Let's jump in. Hey, Brad. How are you today?
Good, Megan. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us on Green Disruptors. Happy to have you. Apologies to listeners. Two things. I have a cold, so that is what it is. And my kids are really into singing today. And despite my efforts, that might leak through. So they're really loud. So anyway, so Brad, tell us a little bit about you personally, your background, and then we'll link it to business stuff.
Sure, yeah. Brad Pleima, I'm president of Eco Engineers and been in the renewable energy space for the last decade and started out about 20 years ago. I'm a civil engineer by training and spent just under 15 years in the consulting engineering space before joining Eco, really in the wastewater treatment, industrial pretreatment areas. Started getting exposure to biogas and did a couple of electricity generation projects. And then around 2014, when the renewable fuel standard, more innovative fuels came up, renewable natural gas became a thing, and taking biogas, turning it into RNG, and then using that as vehicle fuel and transportation fuel started to become a bigger and bigger thing. And was really working on projects helping private industry, municipalities capitalize on that potential green innovation. And it also led to some revenue generation for those facilities too. And had the opportunity to come join Eco in early 2017 and do that full time. And that's really expanded into all types of renewable energy and energy transition work, anywhere from biofuels, RNG to ethanol, sustainable aviation fuel into hydrogen, helping people meet sustainability goals, GHG inventories. The world is endless in the renewable energy, sustainability, and energy transition space.
So do you guys operate as a consultancy or as an implementation as well?
Yeah, so Eco has been around for the last 16 years, and we're a consulting, auditing, and advisory firm. And so I think the benefits of that is we're really technology neutral, fuel type neutral, energy source neutral. We're definitely a rising tide lifts all boats type of a firm, where if it reduces emissions and offsets some fossil fuels, we're interested. And our consulting team, we help people understand the opportunities. What are the regulations? How do you monetize carbon credits? What is the value of those? What does the future of these various programs look like? And then all the way down to various technologies. So how do you take new and innovative technologies and maybe apply them to rules that weren't written for those new and exciting technologies, and connect those to carbon markets? And ultimately, the win-win scenario in these projects are it makes money, it reduces emissions, it helps us become more energy independent, and if we can check those three boxes, it's a no-brainer for a project to do. And then we also look at like life cycle analysis and calculating the carbon emissions, the emissions reductions associated with not only fuels and energy sources, but really anything. So like the guitar behind you, we could calculate the emissions associated with building that. And when a company does some innovative or improvements in their manufacturing, their production, their distribution, if they can demonstrate a emissions reduction, Eco Engineers is a company that can help them figure out, can you monetize that reduction? And then how do you go about doing that? How do you comply with various regulations? And can put our seal of approval as a third party on those claims and to make them more valid and more robust. And then finally, we do about 40% of our company is in audit and verification. So we will take those claims that people are making and verify those and audit those, both in a regulatory environment and in a voluntary or non-regulated setting.
Okay, so a couple of questions from everything you just said. So is this just in the United States, or do you guys do international business, or?
Yeah, it's really expanding. When we started 16 years ago, it was really focused on like ethanol and biodiesel just in the United States. And then that started creeping into Canada as they have several green emissions friendly or carbon abatement programs, both at a federal level and at an individual province level. And then Europe is quite a bit ahead of us in much of what they're doing. So we're mostly based in the United States. We have somebody in Brazil. We have a few people in Europe and about 10 people in Canada as well. So
nice.
Primarily focused on a lot of North American production, but really expanding and taking that more worldwide as these markets start to become more and more global and less localized.
Which is what we need in solutions.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so my other segment of the question was, what's the biggest gap in knowledge for when these people bring you in? I would guess it's the carbon credit side, but is there a main thing?
Yeah, I think it's in the measurement. Like, what are the emissions benefits of doing something a little bit differently, and then definitely what are the opportunities? What markets can I participate? Many of these newer technologies, it's expensive to get something off the ground, and when you're competing against energy sources that have been, here for hundreds of years, then doing something a little bit differently, oftentimes you're going to need some additional incentives. And sometimes that comes in the form of carbon credits. Sometimes you can take advantage of regulatory programs like the Renewable Fuel Standard, the California Low Carbon Fuel Standard, the various Canadian programs. So it really generally starts at taking a look at what's the overall playing field, what's out there, and what are you trying to do, either from a new technology, from a new project, a new energy source, and how do you fit that in to the existing framework? And then if that doesn't fit, how do you go out there and create your own market and find value for what you're doing? And so that's generally where we see people starting at when they engage with us, to just understand what's the lay of the land and what's the opportunity that's right in front of me.
Yeah, I like the idea of framing it as an opportunity. I think we like that psychologically better than, getting our hands slapped. But I'm still getting the lay of the land for you guys here. So is there like a cap to the size of business you work with? Do you only work with, Fortune 500 style companies or all across the board?
I think that's the interesting part. We start from a 1 or 2 person shop that has a cool, crazy, innovative idea to large Fortune 100 companies that have a worldwide footprint that are participating in these various markets and investments. So it's the fun thing about the job and working here is you get exposure to a lot, big, small, repetitive, innovative, new, old, and you kind of blend all that together to figure out how do you help that entity move forward what they're trying to accomplish. But for us, it really does need to take a sustainability and decarbonization role. So we've got engineers in our name, but we actually don't design anything, we don't build anything, we don't own and operate anything. It's really taking those ideas, concepts, from all the way from I have this idea to how do I get something built, and then if I'm going to be able to generate credits or take advantage of various markets, how do I comply with those, and how do I make sure that the credits I'm doing are valid and verified by a third party, someone like us.
Yeah. So, that's nice to hear, because I bet a lot of smaller companies would assume that a service like this would just maybe be not a possibility until they reach a certain level of growth. So what would you say to people like that to kind of reassure them?
Even those people started somewhere, and I think we're definitely can craft solutions for any size of business and opportunity. We do 1 hour, 2 hour training sessions that just help pave the roadmap for what could the next 6 months, 12 months look like, and really understand what their goals are and help put them on a path. And then as they get more momentum, as they secure more funding, get project partners, then our goal is to really stay alongside them the entire time and be a resource at whatever level that they need.
Awesome. Okay, so let's maybe shift the conversation a little bit to terms of like your, eco engineers. How do you grow? It's definitely a crazy year for sustainability, as we all know. So what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think crazy is a good way to put it. I think being in this industry for a decade plus, there's always some level of
Yeah.
uncertainty, whether it's in a market, whether it's in a direction. I think over the last 6, 12 months, those have stacked up and are substantial, and it's causing some people to just stop and pause of what is our strategy going forward? What are we going to do? I think for eco, the nice thing about what we do is we're also working with about 250 operating facilities. And so we're seeing a lot of people switch their attention from, build to I have this portfolio of well operating projects. What can I do to improve the efficiency, the output? Can I generate more from the same facility? And maybe instead of building the next
Instead of expanding.
next $50 million landfill gas facility, maybe you take $5 or $10 million and debottleneck a couple of your existing facilities and improve output. So it's really just a relook of strategy. And I think the people waiting to see how some of the politics and some of the regulations, tariffs, economic anxieties really play out to start fully reinvesting again. But I think it's a good opportunity to pause, take a little bit of a breather, and figure out what the next path forward is, because there's still so many opportunities out there in a wide variety of areas that if you've got the right opportunity, the right idea, and a good facility, good project, you can still get things done even in a turbulent market environment.
Well, and sometimes there seems to always be the one player at the top of the game who still does incredibly well in a downturn market. And they've obviously figured something out about, the most efficient way to do things and how to kind of stay on top. But that is interesting to hear you say. And I think you're totally right. It's like when you're in a downturn, you're kind of like doing an assessment of what you have, And if you think of it in terms of the everyday person, it's like, okay, this is our budget. This is how much we have. Can we use it more efficiently instead of maybe, deciding to invest in, if that makes sense to me, just from a small perspective.
Yeah, I talking to some friends and family, they always ask well, what's going on? It's a very turbulent market, and we tell our clients too is, are you really in this for the long-term vision? Is this jumping in to make a quick dollar? If you are, you're probably pretty stressed out right now.
Yeah.
But if you're in this for a 5, 10, 15, 20-year cycle, these ups and downs happen. And I was telling, my friends, they were saying, I likened it to if you looked at your 401k every day. Could you imagine I should stop investing because the stock market's down? Nah, that's when you really should continue to push forward. And you mentioned some of those bigger companies and the more successful ones. Those are the ones that have plowed through all of these uncertainties. And a good example is in the renewable fuel standard in the RIN market, credit prices were really down under the Trump administration, under the first version of the Trump administration. The credit price got cut in half for about a year. And everyone was saying, oh, the gold rush is over. This is done. We're never going to move. We're never going to recover from this. And the people that plowed forward and overcame that, when the credit prices bounced back up to record highs 2 years later, they were the ones that had operating facilities ready to go to take advantage of that. And instead, what other players did is they took that as, well, now I need to jump back in. Well, now a couple of years later, we're at a little bit more of a lull, and they're saying, why did I do this? Like, this didn't make any sense. And we're going to get back into cycles. The market is very cyclical. And if you really do believe that reducing emissions and doing things more sustainable is the long-term vision for any kind of company or product or energy source, then it's always a good time to be doing something and jumping into this space. But I think people, no doubt, people are a little bit more cautious, doing more and more due diligence, and make sure they're spending their dollars wisely and they're mitigating as much risk as possible. And I think that's very sensible and reasonable out there.
Yeah. I mean, from a marketing agency perspective, people are like, oh, you're crazy, you got into sustainability. And I'm like, no, because not really. I'm in it for the long haul. And, you can always, there's tons to be learned during a downtime like this as well. So I agree. It makes me think of like a mosh pit, like at a rock concert or something. It's like, it's crazy in there. If you get in there, you're going to get knocked around. It's going to be really loud and you're going to probably lose your mind eventually, unless, you're having fun. But the further away you get, the more you can have some clarity to think and to look at the big perspective. I think we all need to step back from the daily news cycle enough to be like, okay, what's my sensible plan forward and my own sustainability plan within my sustainability business. So
exactly. Yeah. It's just maybe the opportunities are a little bit fewer or a little bit harder to find, but they're there. And I think if they're not, then you're going to see a lot more attention, a lot more competition. So it's a good time to be, are you really in this for the long haul? And I think the people that are and the people that stick this through, they're going to be better for it as they go forward.
100% agreed. Yeah. So on this same note, what do you think one of the main bottlenecks for you guys is right now?
Yeah, it's tough to pick one because there's several, but I think some of the regulatory challenges, I'll talk about the biofuel space. Ethanol and biodiesel really started 25 years ago, and that has grown and expanded into sustainable aviation fuel and hydrogen and the next generation of fuels. And we're even looking beyond that of how do you take ethanol and turn it into jet fuel. And there's a lot of innovation out there. And those areas have always used the regulations as the framework and the backstop for investment. And there is those are still there. Like, we still have those core programs from 15 years ago in the RFS. And so still relying on those, but understanding the ups and downs of credit pricing, the administration changes really impact what's going on. But I think where 10 years ago there was one program in the federal program in the RFS, California had a low carbon fuel standard that also fueled a lot of biofuel development. And now 10 years later, there's programs in Oregon and Washington and New Mexico. New York's looking at a program. Illinois is looking at a program. Canada has a program. Brazil has a program. So even though there's uncertainties in a lot of those individualized markets, the long-term health is there, and people are continuing to move this forward. It's just you've got to navigate those political and regulatory uncertainties. I'd say that's the biggest challenge out there. And maybe secondary is the voluntary carbon market that kind of gets grouped into a lot of, it's a big category, but let's just say, companies making sustainability efforts, making net zero goals or emissions reduction goals, buying renewable energy. I think that's taken a little bit of a pause to see, is this the right thing? There's some economic anxieties out there. There's some tariff anxieties. Is it the right thing to be doing to be spending dollars in these areas? And many of those companies are saying, yes, we're going to do that. We committed to doing this. We're going to move forward. But there are some people that are saying, maybe we should take a look at this, and maybe we should reduce our efforts in these areas. And, everybody has their own strategy. But I think if we could get more people and more companies out there that are just step out on the ledge and say, we're doing this. This is the right thing to do. we see that this as good business and take the lead. Their competition follows. Their other markets
those first
follow.
actors, yep.
Yep. We just need to get the ball, moving down the hill a little bit more, and we'll be in a lot better shape in the industry.
Have you found that certain types of businesses are more likely to have somebody like that that's more willing to stick their neck out?
Yeah, it's all over the board. You'll see like utilities do that, and you wouldn't think that utilities, maybe 150-year-old company, is going to say we're going to make a certain percentage of what we give our customers from renewable sources. That's happening. I'd say tech companies, Microsoft and others, they've really led in some of these areas. We're seeing that. And then you're going to see a lot of, like, not random, but just a lot of people like, Estee Lauder from a makeup perspective. They buy a lot of renewable energy and want to promote low carbon products. Milk.
I didn't know that.
We're looking
cool.
at, how do you make low carbon milk? So there's a lot of people in industries that maybe are ultra competitive that you wouldn't expect that are stepping out there and doing that. But it's pretty individualized to the company, and I think those that are making those claims and sticking to it, I think their customers are rewarding them for doing so.
I think that's a great segue because I think at large the public cares at least some about this, and so depending on your industry, maybe more so than others. But have you found a way to be influential? Like, are you able to help businesses like that move the needle on what they think is a priority?
Yeah, I probably push that a little bit back to you too, from a marketing and branding. How do you tell the story of what they're doing? And I think I go back to how do you tell a sustainability story, but are there opportunities to financially gain in those areas too, whether that is carbon credits or doing things a little bit differently or retooling a manufacturing process that may save you money, but it may save emissions too. So if you can combine both of those together and find those right stories to tell, I think that gains a lot more momentum than people kind of jumping out there for the first time. It's a little bit scary. If you're going to say, I'm going to reduce emissions by 50%, and then you really dig into the details and you're like, wow, that's expensive.
I was going to say, it's one thing to say you're going to do it as an individual, good for you. But when you've got a multi-million-dollar company behind you, it's different stakes.
Yep. And I think even those entities or those customers, those people, they can take small steps. You don't have to jump fully in. And I think that's one thing that we've seen is we've gotten a little bit too much into this all or nothing. Like, we're going to solve all of climate change or we shouldn't do anything about it. Like,
that's the number one problem with planet Earth right now. All or nothing thinking.
And what we're saying is let's chip away at it year by year, process by process. And when thousands of things come together, guess what? We made a pretty significant impact. But I think we're always looking out, what's the one singular, simplistic way to solve everything? And if that was out there, we would have already done it by now, and it's not. And so just do a little bit, then do a little bit more, and then do a little bit more, and get comfortable with things. And I think that's a really good path forward for people wondering, what can I do? What should I do? You don't need to go spend millions of dollars right out of the gate to make an impact. Anything, any progress is good progress.
Yeah. It just makes me think of taking my kids swimming. Hey, I took you to the pool. I helped you get your swimming suit on. Not everybody's going to go cannonball into the deep end. Like, we're here, we're hanging out. I'm going to put my feet in and I'm going to count that because that's all I got right now.
Yeah. Even if you're just sitting by the pool watching people, at least you went to the pool.
Right. Exactly. You could be miles and miles away, but yeah. Any step forward is worth taking, and I agree with you there for sure. I had so we were talking about storytelling and branding and stuff. I've talked with a lot of businesses, and something I love is when you can tie what motivates a consumer. And we think it's like, well, we just want cheap stuff. But like, no, people actually want to feel good and want to feel like people want to feel like they're a good person. So like if I spend $50 extra on an order and I get to plant 2 trees because of it, like that people have seen like a big impact in their like average order value in their carts and stuff like that. No matter what your business is, like studies are showing like, yeah, people actually do care. So if you can just find the right incentive and the way to, bundle it up with what you're offering, it can make human psychology work for you.
For sure. And I think we've seen that at some of the national retailers. So you take large, box stores, they're super price conscious because everything is very low margin, very, very competitive.
Yeah.
But even they can take steps where they encourage their suppliers to reduce emissions, or sometimes they may mandate to say, if you want certain shelf space here, you need to have sustainability goals. You need to be doing something. And it's, again, may not be like your carbon, your net zero or from an emissions perspective, but we want to see that you are doing something. And they can, that's really not a regulatory driver, but it's not voluntary if you want to do business with some of those retailers too. And so there's ways where they can lead by encouraging or mandating that the people that they work with have some goals. And I think most of them do. They have their own company-wide goals as well. So they're not speaking out of both sides of their mouth. They're really doing it and then moving the needle in areas where they may not, participate in.
I love that. It's like instead of government regulation, you can just think in terms of like we make our regulations within our business that align with our values, and we want to make sure all our partners do the same. So,
yeah, I really think that's the key to blowing up this industry. In a good way is use regulation and use government-based programs when it's out there.
Yeah.
But use the carrot method over the stick and. We just need more and more carrots out there and more people to dangle that. I think Europe uses the stick method quite a bit, and that works, but they also get a lot of pushback. And
they sure do.
We here in the U.S., we probably have a hybrid model, but more towards how can you make these projects pay for themselves? How can you make them a win-win for both the producer and the buyer and the consumer?
Yeah, interesting. Hey, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you. You're so knowledgeable, and I like how we've tied it into a lot of different topics. And is there anything that you want to kind of close up with here?
No, I really enjoyed the conversation too. Thanks for having me. We could probably talk all day about strategies and opportunities out there. And I think if it's anything, it's probably what I mentioned before, are what's the one thing or the small thing that you can do to move the needle forward. That's good enough, and that's doing a lot more than others are doing. And I think once you take that first step, you'll be excited to take the third, fourth, and fifth, and you'll probably find that the industry is very supportive. There's going to be people out there like you that can help tell the story in a good way and position them. And so we need as much of that as possible. And then one thing we haven't touched on that's really, really important too is verification and confirmation of those claims too.
Right.
So if somebody's going to say that, it's really easy for me to say, I've got $10 million in my bank account. Well, the bank may disagree with that. And so they're a third party saying, well, maybe not so much. And I think that's an important part that a company like Eco Engineers plays as well, is when people are making those, it doesn't do any good to overpromise and underdeliver, or sell somebody carbon credits that may not be fully valid or fully realized. And so going in there there's a lot of people like us that go in there and substantiate those claims.
Yeah.
People have probably heard the greenwashing term.
Oh, yes.
I think that gets a bad, you don't want to be associated with that. And there are ways to mitigate the risk. There are ways to get people involved to substantiate what you're doing. And so it's not just you out there saying how great your product is. Surround yourself with a team that can help confirm that, can help tell that story. And I think the more we do that, the more we're going to break through. And frankly, the less we need to rely on political and regulatory conditions to drive the market forward.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that'll make everybody feel better. If we can just handle this without the emotional roller coaster that is politics, that would just be so great.
For sure. And make a lot of conversations easier too.
Totally. Yes. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And maybe you want to share like the website or anything if people want to get in contact with you guys.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate it. Thanks again for having me. www.ecoengineers.us, and can find me on LinkedIn or find my email there. Happy to continue a conversation, and appreciate all the things that you do to spread the word.
Yeah. No, thank you. All right.
Thanks for joining us on Green Disruptors. A huge thank you to Brad Pleima for sharing his insights on scaling decarbonization, navigating turbulent regulatory landscapes, and staying committed through market cycles. If you want to explore how eco-engineers can help your business understand carbon opportunities, life cycle emissions, or compliance in renewable energy markets, visit them and learn more about their consulting, auditing, and verification work. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, leave a review, and share it with someone who cares about building a more sustainable world, one step at a time. Until next time, I'm Megan Kajar, and this is Green Disruptors, where we amplify the leaders shaping the future of the planet.